Hey, welcome. Today we are diving deep into some of the most epic fails in business history. We're talking about those catastrophic decisions made right at the very top. Choices that didn't just lose a bunch of money, they absolutely sank entire corporate empires.
So you have to wonder, right? How can one person, with just one decision, bring a legendary company crumbling to its knees? I mean, how does that even happen?
Well, as we're about to find out, sometimes it's a whole lot easier, and frankly, a lot more common than you'd probably imagine.
Okay, let's break down the anatomy of what makes a truly historic blunder. See, this isn't just going to be some boring list of mistakes. We're going to dig into the very human flaws. We're talking about the ego, the fear, the denial that tie all of these incredible stories together.
So, let's kick off our countdown. We're starting with 5 blunders that completely crippled some of the most iconic brands you can think of, starting with maybe one of the most famous marketing disasters of all time.
All right, coming in at number 10, New Coke. Can you believe it? Back in 1985, the CEO of Coca-Cola, Roberto Goizueta, decided to change the company's secret formula after 99 years. The public reaction was, well, it was chaos, absolutely brutal. People were hoarding old cans, they were flooding the company's hotlines, they were literally organizing protests. And after just 79 days of this national outrage, they caved and brought the original back. It was this huge, embarrassing lesson that sometimes your most valuable asset isn't what's in the product, but the emotional connection people have with it.
Next up at number 9, we've got WeWork. So the founder, Adam Neumann, he sold this incredible revolutionary vision to investors, and he pushed WeWork to this insane $47 billion valuation. But the reality? Oh man, it was a total mess of out-of-control spending and really bizarre leadership. Get this, Neumann actually trademarked the word "we" himself and then sold it back to his own company for almost $6 million. So of course, when they tried to go public, the whole house of cards just came tumbling down. It just goes to show you, charisma can only hide a broken business model for so long.
Number 8 is a story about failing at lightning speed. Quibi. Led by CEO Meg Whitman, this was supposed to be a streaming service for quick bites of content on your phone. The problem? It launched in April 2020, right as the entire world went into lockdown. It was a mobile-only service for people on the go when literally nobody was on the go. They blew through almost $2 billion and shut the whole thing down in just 8 months. It was just the perfect storm of terrible timing and a complete misunderstanding of what anyone actually wanted to watch. Coming in hot at number 7, Yahoo. Hit a story about the staggering price of arrogance. So picture this. It's 2008, and Microsoft offers to buy the company for almost $45 billion. CEO Jerry Yang says no, flat out. He was convinced they were worth way more. Fast forward less than a decade, and Verizon swoops in and buys Yahoo's core business for under $5 billion. That is a $40 billion miscalculation, all because of ego.
And now for one of the most legendary cautionary tales in business history. Number 6, Blockbuster. Back in the year 2000, this tiny little startup you might have heard of, called Netflix, offered to partner with them. Blockbuster CEO and his team, they literally laughed the Netflix guys out of the room. They were so confident in their model of late fees that they couldn't see the streaming revolution coming. By the time they finally woke up, it was just too late. They chose to ignore the future, and well, the future completely replaced them.
Okay, now we're entering the top 5, and this is where things get a lot more serious. The stakes here are so much higher, moving way beyond just financial losses, to decisions that had devastating and in some cases, truly deadly consequences.
At number 5, we have the absolute tragic irony of Kodak. Get this, they invented the world's first digital camera way back in 1975. But through the 90s, the management team actively suppressed it. They were terrified it would destroy their incredibly profitable film business. In the end, they were so afraid to disrupt their own company that they just let their competitors do it for them, which eventually drove Kodak straight into bankruptcy.
At number 4, a scandal of pure, massive deception. Under its CEO, Volkswagen intentionally programmed millions of their diesel cars with so-called defeat devices, specifically to cheat on emissions tests. So when these cars were actually on the road, they were pumping out up to 40 times the legal limit of pollution. When this all came out, it cost the company over $30 billion in fines and completely shattered the world's trust in a brand that was built on engineering and integrity. You see, the truth always comes out, and it's always more expensive than the lie.
Number 3 is all about a total crisis of leadership. After the Deepwater Horizon oil rig exploded, killing 11 people and causing one of the worst environmental disasters in human history, the CEO of BP, Tony Hayward, said this infamous line to a reporter, "I'd like my life back." In the middle of all that devastation, it was just a moment of stunning self-pity that showed a complete failure of accountability, empathy, and leadership right when the world needed it most.
Our number 2 blunder isn't measured in dollars, it's measured in lives. 346. That was the human cost. Under its CEO, Boeing rushed its new 737 MAX plane to market. They installed a flawed flight control system and then failed to properly tell pilots about it. The result was 2 horrifying crashes. This was a catastrophic failure that put profits ahead of people, and the consequences were absolutely devastating.
And here we are, at number 1, a decision that didn't just sink a company, it nearly sank the entire world economy. The CEO of Lehman Brothers, Richard Gould, was warned again and again about the firm's massive investment in toxic subprime mortgages. He completely ignored those warnings. His stubborn denial led Lehman to file for the largest bankruptcy in U.S. history, which became the spark that ignited the 2008 global financial crisis. It proves that sometimes one person's refusal to face reality can bring the whole system crashing down.
So, from a bad soda recipe all the way to a global financial meltdown, what's the one thing that connects all of these monumental failures? Well, when you look closely, a really clear pattern starts to emerge. Let's look at the common threads that run through every single one of them.
You know, it really just boils down to these 4 very human flaws. Hubris, that feeling you're too big to fail, like at Yahoo and Lehman Brothers. Fear, the fear of change that absolutely doomed Kodak and Blockbuster. Greed, the engine that drove the scandals at Volkswagen and Boeing, prioritizing profits over everything else. And finally, denial, just a flat-out refusal to accept the reality that's staring you in the face, which was really the final nail in the coffin for all of them. And that really brings us to the final question, doesn't it? These aren't just fascinating stories from the past. The exact same patterns of ego and fear and greed are playing out in boardrooms all over the world right now as we speak. It really makes you wonder, which of the big corporate decisions being made today will end up on a list just like this one in 10 years? Thanks so much for joining me for this breakdown.